I created a block that will absolutely destroy your Minecraft world. Grey goo will devour every block it comes in contact with, and we will see it decimate everything. But that's not all. There are 10 different types of goo, from water and lava eating goo to very strange randomizer goo, all the way to destructive and reconstructive goos. Let's start with the first two basic grey goos and destroy some Minecraft worlds. I implemented some game rules so that the grey goo doesn't just spread uncontrollably. So once I set the goo spreading to true, you can see the devastating power of the grey goo. It basically swallows this village up like it's nothing. And yes, you can also control the speed. Currently we're set to 10 with lower numbers being faster, and we will see speed 1 later in this video. But speed 10 already decimates this area and slows the game down after just a few seconds of letting the grey goo loose. I mean, look at the enormous area the goo covers. It is breathtaking how huge it is. And all that is left is a giant crater, standing as a testament to the grey goo's destructive power. And while the normal grey goo and the crater are pretty awesome, they are nothing compared to the immense destructive powers of some of the other goos. Dark grey goo also eats air and it doesn't decay. This leads to a very interesting property. The dark grey goo grows in all directions, swallowing up the village very quickly. When the dark grey goo spreads, it looks like a sort of tumor growing in the landscape. It's quite unnerving to look at. And because it doesn't decay, it slows the game down even faster. The entire insides are filled with dark grey goo blocks, and the monument it leaves behind looks absolutely incredible. It's the horrible kind of incredible, but still amazing to look at. Where once this idyllic village stood, now a towering mass of dark grey goo looms over the landscape. Also quite idyllic is this lake and mountain formation, so let's drain it with blue goo. As you can imagine, blue goo spreads to nearby water and eats it up and then continues to spread. It's basically a much better sponge block and drains the lake at breakneck speeds. You can see the lake floor in a matter of seconds, and because the water is connected through a cave system and flooded caves, the blue goo will likely continue until it reaches the ocean. Because it is quite contained, you can actually let this run way longer than any of the previous goos. And for comparison, this is the lake before, and this is the lake after blue goo. We'll see some more amazing before and after images with both the randomizer and the black and white goo, but first, we are in the nether, and this is red goo. Red goo gobbles up lava, so the nether is the perfect place to test it and to see its destructive powers. The striders are going to be freezing cold after I'm done with them. No lava left for you to stride on. The red goo spreading in this lava lake might be one of my favorite goos to watch. And as it expands more and more and gets near the nether fortress, I decide to stop the red goo spread to look at this majestic lava dam it makes. Fantastic. Also fantastic is pink goo, although it is a bit harder to explain. For this, we need to let grey goo spread, and then we'll set down pink goo once I'm able to do it. Pink goo only eats other goos and creates some very awesome visuals as well. While normal grey goo would just wreck the place and make a giant crater, with the pink goo, it makes this modern piece of art. And where pink goo really shines is in conjunction with purple goo. You see, purple goo is special in that it spreads over land. It doesn't eat anything but air and just coats the landscape in a majestic purple glory. So if we then introduce pink goo into the mix, we get this absolutely fascinating pattern. The purple goo continues to expand and grow, but the pink goo is hot on its tail and starting to consume the purple goo. It becomes most apparent when we let the purple goo spread over water and then set down a pink goo block. Ah, the wonderful complexity and beautiful pattern that can emerge from such simple blocks. Also quite simple is green goo. Before we look at the randomizer goo, which is absolutely incredible, green goo eats anything that is living. Basically everything that is green, to be honest. It transforms grass into dirt and just casually rolls through the landscape. The leaves on trees are not safe either. It might not be the most interesting goo, but it's still a cool addition worth taking a look at if you ever want to make your own Badlands biome. And now, the randomizer goo. I think I'll just let the goo do the speaking on this one. Randomizer goo spreads like purple goo, only on one layer above everything. But it decays, and once it does, it spawns a random block in its place. This can lead to some pretty freaking interesting patterns. Because it can decay into almost any block, you'll sometimes have some waterlogged blocks being formed, for example. Pretty awesome. But this is a bit small for my taste. Let's go bigger. Much bigger. Let's set down multiple of them and let them rip. Let's go! This time even end portals are being created that shoot up beacons right there. What a beautiful tapestry to look at. The decaying into other blocks is so freaking cool. And because it does, let's just set down another on top of everything and generate another field of craziness. I absolutely love the randomizer goo, and yes, you can play around with this too, by the way, because the mod is available for download. Just take a look at the description below, but be aware and be careful with it. It might end up destroying your world, and I take no responsibility for that. What I do take responsibility for is the black and white goo though. This is by far my favorite pairing. If I set down some black goo right here, it will eat up a few blocks in a certain radius. All non-iron, of course. It still looks freaking awesome, but what is so special about this? That is limited? No, the specialty is in the harmony between the black and the white goo. Because placing down the white goo over here will make it restore the consumed blocks. And this is by far my favorite addition. This looks so awesome. And if we turn it up to 11 or 200 in goo spread distance, the black goo will first devour every randomized block that we've created. Look at it go, absolutely amazing to see. It is just as satisfying as letting gray goo loose on the landscape. And try to remember the pattern of random blocks that is consuming, because you know what's going to happen next. But the really cool trick comes in now. Because once again, putting down white goo, it will restore every single block that was just eaten. It is so satisfying to watch. Black and white goo are definitely my favorite additions I've done in this mod. We'll get back to black and white goo again, but first, as promised, the fastest spreading goo speed. I have to be quick with this because I don't want my game to crash, but there we go. I'll let this run for about 10 seconds. And this footage is not sped up or altered in any way. It really is this fast. If you let it run too long, it's going to slow your game down a lot. That is not advised to keep it at this insane speed, but that is what the game rules are for. Also quite speedy is the newest addition to the mod, the chunk destroying goo. This special type of goo is limited in an awesome way, because it will stay within the chunk it was set down in. This leads to some pretty cool visuals. It will ever only move downwards until it reaches the bottom of the world and eats through the bedrock, exposing the entire chunk. If there are any fluids on the side, it will make them into obsidian, because otherwise it will interfere with the chunk destroying goo and it will never come to rest. But once it has eaten through an entire chunk, well, how about we set it down and let it eat 2 chunks next to each other in this incredible mountain. Chunk destroying goo might be useful for farming iron ore, as once again, it does not destroy any iron. But it does rip through the chunks on the landscape quite fast. Considering we're high up in the mountains, these chunks are being torn apart. I guess we'll need a new category for the mined chunks speedrun, as this was done by 0 players. I'm joking of course, but it is quite speedy to be fair. Now, not necessarily speedy, but awesome to look at black and white goo again. Instead of a field of random blocks, how about we let the black goo eat this mountain? Sure, why not? And true to its word, the black goo gobbles up the entire mountain. The remaining crater actually looks really awesome. Sometimes some singular blocks remain here or there. That's just a sinking issue, but that's what you have to deal with the goos sometimes. And as I said, the crater it leaves behind is massive and looks awesome, but restoring the mountain to its former glory, oh, it is so satisfying. Look at this. Some details are missing sometimes because some chunks have a sinking issue, but it makes up for it for how damn satisfying it is. And I know what you want to see. This is all goos together eating each other and doing whatever they want. A magnificent but strange dance of colors and destruction. It is pretty cool to look at. Also pretty cool to look at is this video right here. Hope to see you there. So yeah,